"Get out, you worthless piece of ghetto trash!" The words slice through the quiet Arlington afternoon like a whip crack. Officer Bradley Mitchell towers over a black sedan, his face twisted with pure hatred as he glares at the woman inside. Colonel Diana Washington sits behind the wheel, her hands steady despite the venom being hurled at her. She's impeccably dressed, her posture military straight, but to Mitchell she's just another target. Bang! His fist crashes down on her car roof, leaving a visible dent. Diana flinches but doesn't break eye contact. "You people think you own this neighborhood?" Mitchell drags his baton across her pristine paint job. Scratch, scratch, scratch. "Time somebody taught you your place." He yanks her door handle, leaning close enough that spit flies from his mouth. "Out! Now!" 20 neighbors watch in stunned silence. Phone cameras start rolling. Diana's military training wars with her survival instincts. Have you ever seen someone's world explode in seconds, not knowing whether they'd crumble or rise like a phoenix? 2 hours earlier, Arlington, Virginia breathes with the rhythm of suburban perfection. Golden autumn sunlight filters through oak trees lining Maple Ridge Drive, casting dancing shadows on manicured lawns. The air carries the crisp scent of fallen leaves and the distant hum of Pentagon traffic just 3 miles away. Colonel Diana Washington sits in her Pentagon office, reviewing classified briefings on Middle East operations. Her uniform bears 20 years of service ribbons, each one earned through dedication and sacrifice. The morning's intelligence reports demand her full attention. Troop movements, strategic assessments, decisions that could affect thousands of lives. Her phone buzzes. A text from her daughter, Madison. "Mom, can you pick me up at 3? Soccer practice got canceled." Diana checks her watch. 1:45 p.m. She has just enough time to finish the briefing summary and drive to Washington Lee High School. She closes the classified files, locks them in her secure drawer, and heads for the parking garage. The drive from Pentagon to Arlington's residential heart takes her through a neighborhood she's called home for 8 years. Tree-lined streets wind past colonial houses with American flags hanging from front porches. Many belong to military families like hers, officers, enlisted personnel, government workers who serve their country in countless ways. Diana drives her personal BMW, not a government vehicle. She's changed from her uniform into civilian clothes, a navy blazer, white blouse, and pearl earrings her mother gave her for her promotion to colonel. To any observer, she looks like a successful professional heading home from work. She passes the elementary school where Madison learned to read, the community center where Diana volunteers with veteran families, the small park where she jogs every morning at 05:30 hours. This neighborhood represents everything she's fought to protect. The American dream made real through service and sacrifice. Officer Bradley Mitchell starts his shift with a different mindset entirely. 12 years patrolling Arlington County has hardened him into something ugly. His partner logs show a troubling pattern. 70% of his traffic stops involve people of color, despite Arlington's diverse demographics. Mitchell sees threats where others see neighbors. A black teenager walking home becomes a suspicious person. A Latino family at the community pool becomes potential gang activity. His radio chatter reveals a man who views his badge as a license for power rather than service. Today's patrol briefing mentioned increased vigilance for drug trafficking. Mitchell interprets this as permission to target anyone who doesn't fit his narrow definition of belonging. He's already made 2 questionable stops this morning, both involving minority drivers who were released with warnings after producing clean records. Officer Kevin Walsh rides alongside Mitchell with growing unease. 4 years on the force taught him to recognize trouble, and Mitchell represents everything wrong with policing. Walsh keeps quiet because he needs this job, but his conscience weighs heavier each day. His body camera runs continuously, department policy he secretly appreciates. The neighborhood where Diana drives home tells 2 different stories. For families like the Washingtons, it represents achievement and belonging. Their American flags fly with pride earned through service. Children play safely in yards while parents work jobs that matter. But Mitchell sees invasion. He notices when black families move into his patrol area. He questions their right to prosperity, their claim to citizenship in spaces he considers his territory. His mind creates narratives of criminality where none exist. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson tends her garden 3 houses down from Diana's home. At 67, she witnessed Arlington's transformation from a predominantly white enclave to a genuinely diverse community. She knows Diana as the polite colonel who waves every morning, whose daughter babysits neighborhood children. But Mrs. Patterson also represents the passive complicity that allows injustice to flourish. She'll watch uncomfortable situations unfold without intervening, assuming authorities must have good reasons for their actions. Today we'll test whether comfort or conscience wins when justice demands a choice. The afternoon sun climbs higher as these separate worlds prepare to collide. Diana drives through her neighborhood thinking about her daughter's college applications and weekend family plans. Mitchell patrols the same streets looking for opportunities to exert power. Walsh struggles with his role as silent witness to increasing misconduct. In 90 minutes, their paths will intersect at the corner of Maple Ridge Drive and Oak Street. What happens there will expose the contradictions at America's heart, where service to country meets service to self, where the protection of law encounters the abuse of power. The stage is set. The characters are moving. And Arlington, Virginia is about to witness how quickly the American dream can become an American nightmare. Diana's BMW glides down Maple Ridge Drive at exactly 25 miles per hour, 5 under the speed limit as always. Her hands rest at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, a habit from military driving courses. The radio plays soft jazz while she mentally reviews her evening plans, help Madison with her college essay, prep tomorrow's Pentagon briefing, call her mother in Atlanta. In her rearview mirror, flashing red and blue lights suddenly explode like angry fireworks. Diana's heart sinks, but her training kicks in immediately. She activates her hazard lights, pulls to the curb near the Johnson family's maple tree, and places both hands visibly on the steering wheel. 20 years of military discipline battles 20 years of being black in America. Mitchell's patrol car lurches to a stop behind her, positioned at an aggressive angle that blocks potential escape routes. He sits for 30 seconds, deliberately building tension while running her plates. The computer screen shows what he doesn't want to see. Clean record, current registration, no outstanding warrants. Damn, Mitchell mutters. He was hoping for something, anything, to justify what comes next. Walsh shifts uncomfortably in the passenger seat. Mitch, what was the probable cause for this stop? She was driving suspiciously, Mitchell snaps, already crafting his narrative. Checking out houses like she's chasing them. Walsh glances at his body camera, making sure it's recording. Diana Washington was driving normally. He watched her for 3 blocks, but challenging Mitchell directly means paperwork, confrontation, and potential retaliation. Mitchell approaches Diana's window with predatory swagger. His boots crunch on fallen leaves as he surveys the pristine BMW with obvious contempt. To him, the car represents everything wrong with his world. Black success in spaces he considers his own. Diana lowers her window exactly halfway. Enough to communicate, not enough to allow unexpected reach-ins. Good afternoon, officer. How can I help you today? Her voice carries the controlled calm of someone trained to diffuse dangerous situations. But Mitchell hears something else. Educated diction that he interprets as arrogance, professional composure that he reads as disrespect. License and registration, now. No explanation, no courtesy. Just raw command backed by legal authority. Diana reaches slowly for her purse, narrating each movement to avoid misunderstandings. I'm reaching for my purse on the passenger seat. My license is in my wallet. I didn't ask for a play-by-play, lady. Just get your damn papers. The racial undertones hang heavy in the autumn air. Mrs. Patterson, weeding her flower bed 50 yards away, looks up at the harsh tone. This doesn't sound like normal police interaction. Diana produces her license and registration with military precision. Her Pentagon parking pass is clearly visible in the plastic holder, along with her military ID card. Mitchell examines the documents with theatrical skepticism, holding them up to the light as if checking for forgeries. Diana Washington, fancy address for someone like you. The words land like a slap. Diana's jaw tightens, but she maintains composure. Officer, may I respectfully ask the reason for this traffic stop? Mitchell's face darkens. In his worldview, questioning police authority equals guilt. Educated black women who know their rights represent his greatest threat, people who might actually hold him accountable. Don't get smart with me. You know exactly why I stopped you. Sir, I was driving within the speed limit, using proper signals and following all traffic laws. I have the right to know why I'm being detained. The word detained triggers Mitchell's anger. This woman talks like a lawyer and thinks she understands the system better than he does. Time to show her who really has power on these streets. Step out of the vehicle, now. Diana's training screams danger. Routine traffic stops don't require drivers to exit their vehicles unless officers suspect impairment or criminal activity. This escalation violates standard procedure. Officer, I've provided the requested documentation. On what legal grounds are you ordering me from my vehicle? Mitchell's hand drops to his service weapon, not drawing it but making the threat clear. The gesture sends ice through Diana's veins. Because I said so. And if you don't comply immediately, you'll be arrested for obstruction of justice. Walsh finally speaks up, his voice tight with anxiety. Mitch, maybe we should... Shut up, Walsh. I'm handling this. Diana recognizes the moment of truth. She can invoke her military rank, demand to speak to a supervisor, or assert her constitutional rights. But each option carries risks that could escalate into violence. She chooses survival over principle. I am complying with your order, officer, but I want it clearly stated that I am not consenting to this search and that I am being cooperative. Diana steps from her vehicle with careful dignity. She's 5'6", but carries herself like someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of colonels and generals. Even in civilian clothes, her military bearing is unmistakable. Mitchell notices immediately and hates what he sees. This woman doesn't cower. She doesn't submit. She stands like someone expecting respect rather than begging for mercy. Hands on the hood, spread your feet. The humiliation is intentional. Mitchell positions Diana so passing neighbors can see her being treated like a criminal. Mrs. Patterson stops pretending to garden and watches openly. Two teenagers walking home from school slow their pace, phones already recording. Diana complies, placing her hands flat on the BMW's warm hood. The metal feels solid beneath her palms, a reminder that this is really happening. Colonel Diana Washington, 20-year military veteran, is being publicly humiliated on her own street. Mitchell begins patting her down with unnecessary aggression, his hands lingering longer than proper procedure requires. Diana's muscles tense with each inappropriate touch, but she forces herself to remain still. What's in the car? Mitchell demands, already moving toward the passenger door. Personal items, my briefcase, my daughter's school supplies. Any drugs, weapons, anything illegal? The questions reveal Mitchell's true agenda. He's not investigating a traffic violation. He's fishing for criminal charges that don't exist. No, sir. Nothing illegal. Mitchell opens her passenger door without permission, beginning an unauthorized search. Diana's briefcase sits on the seat, leather, expensive, with a Pentagon security sticker warning against unauthorized access. What's this? Looks official. That's my work briefcase. It contains classified materials. Mitchell laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Classified materials? What are you, some kind of spy? He reaches for the briefcase, but Walsh finally intervenes. Mitch, If that's really classified, we need to be careful. Federal jurisdiction issues. Mitchell ignores him, more interested in humiliating Diana than following proper procedure. He rifles through her car systematically. Glove compartment, center console, door pockets. Finding nothing, his frustration grows. The search reveals Diana's life in careful detail. Her daughter's honor roll certificate, a photo of her military unit in Afghanistan, receipts from the dry cleaner, classical music CDs. Everything screams respectability and success, exactly what Mitchell can't tolerate. More neighbors emerge. The Hendersons across the street peer through their curtains. Mr. Rodriguez from the corner house walks his dog closer, instinctively recognizing something wrong with this picture. 3 more teenagers gather at the bus stop, their phones capturing every moment. Diana calculates the growing audience. 17 witnesses now, at least 6 phones recording. This public humiliation is being documented from multiple angles. Mitchell slams her car door and returns to where Diana stands spread-eagled against her vehicle. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cool October air. "You people always think you're so much better than everyone else," he hisses, positioning himself inches from her ear. "Living in our neighborhoods, driving fancy cars, acting like you belong here." Diana's hands press harder against the hood. The urge to turn around and confront this racist directly wars with her survival instincts. But she knows any movement could be interpreted as aggression, any response as resistance. "I've been nothing but cooperative, officer. I've answered all your questions and complied with all your requests." "Your attitude tells me everything I need to know," Mitchell shoots back. "Probably dealing drugs to afford this lifestyle. Where's the money coming from, princess?" The insult hangs in the air like poison gas. Mrs. Patterson gasps audibly. Mr. Rodriguez stops walking and pulls out his own phone to record. Mitchell continues his psychological assault, circling Diana like a predator. "Bet you've got a record in some other state. Welfare fraud, identity theft. You people always have something to hide." Each accusation hits like a physical blow. Diana Washington, who has served her country with distinction for 2 decades, who holds top-secret security clearance, who has led soldiers in combat zones, is being systematically dehumanized on her own street. But she doesn't break. Her military training holds. Her dignity remains intact. And unknown to Mitchell, his every word and action is being recorded by 7 different devices, creating an evidence trail that will soon destroy his career and change Arlington County forever. The confrontation lasted 12 minutes. It feels like hours, and it's about to get much worse. Mitchell steps back from Diana's car, his face flushed with frustration. 12 minutes of searching yielded nothing. No drugs, no weapons, no contraband to justify his aggressive stop. But instead of releasing her, his anger intensifies. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Diana's blood turns to ice. "Officer, you've searched my vehicle and found nothing illegal. What are the charges?" "I said turn around." The command echoes across the quiet neighborhood like a gunshot. Mrs. Patterson clutches her gardening gloves to her chest. The teenagers at the bus stop edge closer, their phones capturing every second. Diana slowly turns to face Mitchell, her movements deliberate and controlled. Behind her calm exterior, 20 years of military training calculates exit routes, threat assessments, and de-escalation strategies. But every option leads to the same conclusion: compliance or violence. "Officer, I am not resisting. I am asking for clarification of the charges against me." Mitchell pulls handcuffs from his belt, the metal gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. "Obstruction of justice, suspicious behavior, failure to cooperate with a lawful investigation." Walsh shifts nervously beside his partner. His body camera captures Mitchell's increasingly erratic behavior, evidence that will later prove crucial. But in this moment, Walsh faces the same choice Diana does: compliance or confrontation. "Mitch, her record's clean. Maybe we should just issue a warning and—" "I'll decide when we're done here, Walsh." The outburst silences the younger officer. Mitchell grabs Diana's wrist with unnecessary force, yanking her arm behind her back. The handcuff clicks tight, too tight, cutting into her skin. Diana winces but doesn't cry out. Her military training teaches pain management, but more importantly, it teaches her to document everything. Badge numbers, witnesses, violations of procedure. Every detail will matter later. "These handcuffs are excessively tight," she states clearly, her voice carrying across the gathering crowd. "I am not resisting, but you are causing injury." Mitchell clicks the second handcuff even tighter. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before giving me attitude." The casual cruelty shocks the watching neighbors. Mr. Rodriguez approaches slowly, his phone still recording. "Officer, is this really necessary? She seems like a respectful lady." Mitchell whirls around, his hand moving to his weapon. "Sir, step back immediately or you'll be arrested for interfering with police business." Rodriguez raises his hands but doesn't retreat. "I'm just concerned about excessive force, officer." "There's no excessive force here. This suspect was uncooperative and evasive." The word suspect hangs in the air like an accusation. Diana Washington, mother, colonel, patriot, has been transformed into a criminal by Mitchell's narrative, but the crowd isn't buying it. More neighbors emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. They see a well-dressed professional woman in handcuffs, surrounded by multiple officers, while no crime has been committed. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, 70 years old and white as fresh snow, makes a decision that will haunt her nightmares for months. She approaches the scene with trembling legs. "Officer, I know this woman. She's Colonel Washington. She lives 3 houses down from me. Her daughter babysits my grandchildren." Mitchell's jaw clenches. Witnesses with personal knowledge complicate his narrative, but he's too deep to back down now. "Ma'am, I don't care if she's the Queen of England. She was driving suspiciously in this neighborhood." "I've lived here 40 years, Mrs. Patterson continues, her voice growing stronger. "I know suspicious behavior, and this isn't it." Mitchell takes a step toward the elderly woman, his posture threatening. Diana watches in horror as the situation spirals beyond her control. "Ma'am, return to your house immediately or you'll be arrested for obstruction." The threat against Mrs. Patterson ignites something in Diana's chest, the same protective instinct that made her a leader in the military. But handcuffed and vulnerable, she can only bear witness. Walsh finally finds his voice. "Mitchell, we need to dial this back. We've got multiple witnesses, phones recording." "Shut up, Walsh. You question me one more time and I'll write you up for insubordination." The partnership dissolves before everyone's eyes. Walsh steps away from Mitchell, his body language clearly distancing himself from his partner's actions. Mitchell forces Diana toward his patrol car, his grip on her arm leaving bruises that will photograph well in court later. With each step, his desperation becomes more apparent. "You think your fancy neighborhood protects you?" he whispers in her ear. "You think these people give a damn about you? They see the same thing I do, someone who doesn't belong." Diana's response is measured and clear, meant for the recording phones. "Officer, you are committing multiple civil rights violations. I strongly advise you to contact your supervisor." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm trying to prevent you from destroying your career." Mitchell shoves Diana against his patrol car, her face pressed against the hot metal. The humiliation is complete. A decorated military officer treated like a common criminal on her own street. But Diana Washington didn't survive 20 years in the military by breaking under pressure. Her voice remains steady, professional, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. "Officer Mitchell, badge number 2847. I am stating for the record that I am complying with all lawful orders while not consenting to this detention. I am requesting immediate contact with your supervisor and my attorney." Mitchell's response reveals the depth of his desperation. "Shut your mouth before I add resisting arrest to your charges." The crowd gasps. Diana hasn't moved, hasn't struggled, hasn't raised her voice. Yet Mitchell threatens additional charges for imaginary resistance. 2 more patrol cars arrive, responding to Mitchell's earlier call for backup. Officers Sarah Carter and Marcus Rivera step out, immediately sensing the tension crackling through the air. Chen approaches Walsh quietly. "What's the situation here?" Walsh hesitates, loyalty warring with conscience. Mitchell stopped her for suspicious driving. "But honestly, Carter, I don't think we had probable cause." Rivera surveys the scene. A professional woman in handcuffs, surrounded by concerned neighbors, with multiple phones recording everything. His 15 years of experience recognize a career-ending disaster in progress. "Mitchell, what are the charges?" "Obstruction, failure to comply, suspicious behavior." Rivera examines Diana more closely. Her posture, her bearing, the way she carries herself despite the handcuffs, everything screams military training and leadership. "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Colonel Diana Washington, United States Army, currently serving at the Pentagon." The words hit Rivera like a physical blow. A colonel, a Pentagon officer, on camera, in handcuffs, in front of witnesses. Chen steps closer to Mitchell. "Did you verify her identity?" "She's lying, probably stolen ID." But Carter notices Diana's Pentagon parking pass in the car, the military bearing, the professional demeanor. Her gut tells her Mitchell has made a catastrophic mistake. Diana's phone, still in her car, begins ringing. The caller ID shows Jen Hayes, Pentagon. The sound cuts through the afternoon air like a siren. Diana looks at the phone, then at the officers. "That's my supervisor, General Patricia Hayes, Pentagon Security. When I don't answer, she'll initiate emergency protocols." Mitchell's face goes pale. Pentagon Security doesn't call about parking tickets. But he's too proud, too invested in his narrative to back down. Instead, he doubles down on his mistake, pushing Diana harder against the car. "I don't care who's calling. You're under arrest." The crowd murmurs angrily. Mrs. Patterson shouts, "This is wrong. Someone needs to stop this." More phones appear. Social media posts begin spreading. Arlington police. Stop starts trending locally. Diana closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. 20 years of service, countless briefings with generals and senators, operations that saved American lives, and it all comes down to this moment on a suburban street. The phone stops ringing, then immediately starts again, and Diana Washington realizes that her real battle is just beginning. The second phone call pierces the tension like a blade through silk. Diana's phone screen lights up again. Jen Hayes, Pentagon Security. This time the ringing seems louder, more urgent, cutting through the autumn air with unmistakable authority. Mitchell stares at the phone, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool October weather. His grip on Diana's arm loosens slightly, uncertainty creeping into his bravado. Diana turns her head as much as the handcuffs allow, her voice carrying the quiet command presence that has briefed generals and congressmen. "Officer Mitchell, that is General Patricia Hayes, Director of Pentagon Security. When a Pentagon officer with top-secret clearance doesn't respond to security calls, emergency protocols activate automatically." Mitchell laughs, but the sound cracks with nervous energy. "Right. And I'm General MacArthur." Diana's eyes lock onto his, and for the first time, Mitchell sees something that makes his stomach drop. This isn't the defeated look of someone caught in a lie. This is the steady gaze of someone who knows exactly who holds the real power. "Officer, I am Colonel Diana Washington, Deputy Director of Strategic Operations, Pentagon. Service number 047892156. I briefed the Joint Chiefs last Tuesday on Middle East operations. I hold top-secret SCI clearance, and in approximately 30 seconds, your entire department is about to receive a call from the Pentagon Security Office." Officer Carter steps closer, her training recognizing the shift in dynamics. Something about Diana's bearing, the specific details, the unwavering confidence. It doesn't match Mitchell's narrative of a suspicious criminal. Ma'am, can you prove that? Diana nods toward her car. My Pentagon ID is in my wallet. My security badge is clipped inside my briefcase. Officer Walsh saw both when he searched my vehicle. All eyes turn to Walsh, who shifts uncomfortably under the scrutiny. His conscience has been screaming for 20 minutes, and now it explodes into words. Mitchell, she's right. I saw Pentagon credentials, multiple forms of military ID. Her parking pass is current, dated this morning. Mitchell's face contorts with rage. Walsh, you're out of line! But the damage is spreading like cracks in a dam. Mrs. Patterson calls out from her garden, That's Colonel Washington! She lives right there! She points to a house 3 doors down, an American flag hanging proudly from the front porch. Mr. Rodriguez approaches with his phone still recording. Officer, I can verify her identity. Colonel Washington briefed my son's unit last month at Fort Belvoir. She's the real deal. The crowd murmurs, understanding dawn like sunrise. They haven't witnessed the arrest of a criminal. They've watched the illegal detention of an American hero. Diana's phone rings a 3rd time. This time, Officer Carter makes the decision that will define her career. I'm answering that call. Mitchell lunges forward. Don't you dare! Stand down! Carter's command stops Mitchell cold. She reaches through Diana's car window and answers the phone. This is Officer Sarah Carter, Arlington County Police. The voice on the other end carries the unmistakable authority of command. This is General Patricia Hayes, Pentagon Security Division. We have GPS tracking showing Colonel Washington's vehicle stationary for 37 minutes. Is there an emergency? Chen's face goes white. Her eyes meet Diana's, seeing not a suspect but a fellow professional caught in an impossible situation. General Hayes, we have a situation here. Colonel Washington has been detained. Silence stretches for 3 heartbeats. Then General Hayes's voice cuts through like a sword. Detained? On what charges? Is the colonel injured? Do you have identification of the detaining officers? Chen looks at Mitchell, who stands frozen like a statue. The magnitude of his error crashes over him in waves. General, this is Officer Carter, badge 4821. The detaining officer is Bradley Mitchell, badge 2847. No apparent injuries, but the colonel is currently in restraints. Put Colonel Washington on the phone, immediately. Chen approaches Diana, holding the phone near her ear. General Hayes, Colonel Washington here. Diana, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention, legal representation? Diana's voice remains steady, professional, but something has fundamentally shifted. The power dynamic that Mitchell built over 30 minutes crumbles in 30 seconds. No injury requiring medical attention, General. Legal representation would be advisable. Understood. Pentagon Security is dispatching immediately. Do not sign anything. Do not make any statements without counsel present. That's an order, Colonel. Roger that, General. Chen ends the call and immediately moves to uncuff Diana. Mitchell watches in stunned silence as his authority evaporates. Colonel Washington, I sincerely apologize for this situation. Diana rotates her wrists, restoring circulation as the 2 tight handcuffs come off. For the first time in 30 minutes, she stands fully upright, and her military bearing becomes unmistakable. The transformation is stunning. Seconds ago, she was Mitchell's victim. Now she's revealed as what she always was, a senior military officer with the bearing and presence to command rooms full of generals. Diana addresses the crowd, her voice carrying across the street with natural authority. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone who witnessed this incident and spoke up. Your courage matters more than you know. She turns to face Mitchell directly, no longer the supplicant, but the superior officer addressing a subordinate who has committed a grave error. Officer Mitchell, what happened here today was not a misunderstanding. It was racial profiling, abuse of power, and violation of my constitutional rights. This incident has been recorded by multiple witnesses and will be thoroughly investigated. Mitchell opens his mouth to respond, but no words come. The man who wielded absolute power minutes ago now stands exposed, his career crumbling before an audience of neighbors and colleagues. Diana Washington is no longer his victim. She's his judge. The sirens wail in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Within 3 minutes of General Hayes's call, 2 Pentagon security vehicles screeched to a halt behind the patrol cars, followed immediately by a supervisor's unmarked sedan. Lieutenant Marcus Johnson emerges from the supervisor car, his face grim as he surveys the scene. 17 witnesses, 6 phones still recording, a crowd of agitated neighbors, and his officer standing frozen beside a woman who radiates unmistakable military authority. Johnson approaches Diana with visible concern and professional respect. "Colonel Washington, I am Lieutenant Johnson, Arlington County Police. On behalf of my department, I want to apologize for this incident." Diana's response carries the measured tone of someone accustomed to dealing with crises. "Lieutenant, this goes far beyond an apology. Your officer violated my constitutional rights, conducted an illegal search, and used excessive force. Multiple federal crimes may have been committed." 2 Pentagon security agents flash their credentials to Johnson. The lead agent, a tall black woman with sharp eyes, extends her hand to Diana. "Colonel Washington, Agent Patricia Brooks, Pentagon Security. We're here to conduct a preliminary assessment and ensure your safety. Are you injured?" Diana rolls her sleeves up, revealing dark bruises forming around her wrists where the handcuffs cut into her skin. The crowd gasps at the visible evidence of Mitchell's excessive force. "Contusions to both wrists from improperly applied restraints. No other injuries requiring medical attention." Agent Brooks photographs the injuries while her partner begins interviewing witnesses. The Pentagon's evidence-gathering machine kicks into high gear with military efficiency. Lieutenant Johnson turns to Mitchell, who stands paralyzed by the magnitude of his mistake. "Officer Mitchell, I need your badge and weapon. You are suspended pending investigation." Mitchell's face contorts with desperation. "Lieutenant, this is bullshit. I was following protocol. She was suspicious, uncooperative." "Officer Mitchell," Diana interrupts, her voice cutting through his protests like a scalpel. "I complied with every lawful order. I provided identification when requested. I submitted to an illegal search without resistance. I remained calm while you violated my civil rights. Everything is documented." She gestures toward the crowd. 17 witnesses, 6 video recordings, your own body cameras. The evidence speaks for itself. Johnson extends his hand. "Badge and weapon, Mitchell. Now." Mitchell's hands shake as he removes his badge, the metal catching the afternoon sunlight one final time. His service weapon follows, handed over with the weight of a career ending. "This isn't over," Mitchell mutters. "Internal affairs will see this differently." Officer Walsh steps forward, his conscience finally overcoming his fear. "Lieutenant, I need to report something. This isn't the first time Mitchell has done this." The admission hits like a thunderbolt. Diana looks at Walsh with new interest, recognizing the courage it takes to break the blue wall of silence. "Officer Walsh, are you stating there's a pattern of behavior?" Walsh nods, his voice growing stronger. "Yes, ma'am. I have documentation of similar incidents. Traffic stops with no probable cause, all involving minority drivers. I should have spoken up sooner." Lieutenant Johnson's jaw tightens. A pattern of misconduct means departmental liability, federal investigations, and potential criminal charges. Agent Brooks approaches with her preliminary report. "Colonel, we've identified 7 witnesses with video evidence. Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Rodriguez, and 4 teenagers all captured different angles of the incident." Diana nods, then addresses the crowd directly. "I want to thank everyone who witnessed this incident and had the courage to speak up. Mrs. Patterson, Mr. Rodriguez, all of you, your willingness to stand up for justice matters." Mrs. Patterson steps forward, tears in her eyes. "Colonel, I'm so sorry this happened in our neighborhood. This isn't who we are." Diana's response reveals the leader she's always been. Mrs. Patterson, this isn't about our neighborhood. This happens to Black Americans everywhere, every day. The only difference today was my rank gave me a platform people would listen to. Officer Carter approaches with Diana's personal belongings: wallet, keys, phone. Colonel, your property. Again, my sincere apologies for this incident. Diana accepts her items with dignity. Officer Carter, you made the right choice answering that phone call. Leadership sometimes means standing up to colleagues when they're wrong. Chen nods, understanding the lesson being taught. Lieutenant Johnson addresses the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, this incident will be thoroughly investigated. We ask for your patience as we review all evidence and testimony. Diana's phone buzzes with text messages. Colleagues at the Pentagon who saw the social media posts, friends expressing support, her daughter asking if she's okay. The immediate crisis has passed, but Diana recognizes this is only the beginning. Justice requires more than apologies and suspensions. It demands accountability, consequences, and systemic change. And Colonel Diana Washington has never retreated from a mission in her life. 48 hours after Diana's humiliation on Maple Ridge Drive, the story explodes across national media like wildfire consuming dry timber. CNN leads with, Pentagon colonel handcuffed in her own neighborhood. MSNBC runs continuous coverage under When Serving Your Country Isn't Enough. Even Fox News cannot ignore the optics of a decorated military officer treated like a criminal. The Washington Post's front page headline reads, The Colonel Who Couldn't Drive Home. Racial Profiling in the Pentagon's Backyard. The article, written by Pulitzer Prize winner Sarah Carter, details not just Diana's ordeal, but a pattern of discriminatory policing in Arlington County that has been ignored for years. FBI Civil Rights Division Director James Martinez announces the federal investigation during a packed press conference. When law enforcement officers violate the constitutional rights of American citizens, particularly those serving our nation in uniform, the full weight of federal law will respond. Pentagon Inspector General Catherine Webb launches a parallel investigation not into Diana's conduct, but into how military personnel can be better protected from discriminatory treatment by local law enforcement. The irony isn't lost on anyone. America's warriors need protection at home from those sworn to serve and protect. Virginia Attorney General Rebecca Thompson adds her voice to the growing chorus demanding justice. The evidence in this case is overwhelming. Officer Mitchell's actions represent everything wrong with policing in America today. Social media campaigns explode across platforms. Justice for Colonel Washington trends nationally within hours. Military families share their own stories of discrimination, creating a digital flood of testimonies about service members facing prejudice despite their sacrifice. The evidence against Mitchell mounts like an avalanche. Body camera footage reveals clear constitutional violations. No probable cause for the stop. Illegal vehicle search. Excessive force during detention. 7 different cell phone videos capture the incident from multiple angles, creating an undeniable record of abuse. Officer Walsh's testimony provides the smoking gun. Internal documents show Mitchell stopped black motorists at a rate 340% higher than Arlington County demographics would predict. 12 previous complaints were buried in his personnel file. Victims discouraged from pursuing justice by a system designed to protect bad cops. Arlington County faces a nightmare scenario. Federal investigators discover a culture of silence that enabled Mitchell's misconduct for years. Supervisors who ignored complaints face their own disciplinary action. The county's federal funding hangs in the balance as civil rights violations trigger automatic reviews. 3 weeks after the incident, additional victims emerged. Sandra Martinez, a Latina nurse, testifies about Mitchell's treatment during a traffic stop 6 months earlier. Robert Carter, an Asian American teacher, describes similar harassment near the same location. The pattern becomes undeniable. Mitchell's police union initially defends him, releasing a statement about officers making split-second decisions under pressure. But as evidence mounts and public outrage intensifies, even his staunchest supporters abandon ship. The union quietly withdraws support, leaving Mitchell to face justice alone. The federal trial begins 6 months later in the Eastern District of Virginia. Judge Patricia Williams, herself a veteran, presides over proceedings that capture national attention. Diana takes the witness stand wearing her dress blue uniform, 20 years of service ribbons displayed with pride. Her testimony, delivered with military precision, devastates Mitchell's defense. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan, leading soldiers in combat operations. I've been shot at by Taliban fighters and survived IED attacks. But I have never felt more threatened than I did that afternoon on my own street, handcuffed by the very system I swore to protect." Expert witnesses explain the psychological trauma of racial profiling, how discrimination damages not just individuals but entire communities. Dr. Angela Davis, a Harvard psychology professor, testifies that Diana's treatment represents systematic dehumanization disguised as law enforcement. Mitchell's defense attorney attempts to portray him as a dedicated officer making reasonable decisions under pressure. The strategy crumbles under cross-examination when prosecutors present his history of targeting minority drivers. "Officer Mitchell," federal prosecutor David Kim asks, "can you explain why 78% of your traffic stops involve people of color in a county that is 42% minority?" Mitchell has no answer. His lies unravel on national television, broadcast live on court TV. The jury deliberates for only 2 hours and 37 minutes, barely enough time to elect a foreman and review key evidence. Their verdict echoes through the packed courtroom. Guilty on all counts. Judge Williams's sentencing speech became required viewing at police academies nationwide. "Officer Mitchell, you took an oath to protect and serve all citizens equally. Instead, you used your badge as a weapon against those who looked different from you. Your actions were not just criminal. They were a betrayal of everything law enforcement should represent." Mitchell receives 18 months in federal prison, 3 years supervised probation, and permanent loss of his law enforcement certification. He will never wear a badge again. But individual justice isn't enough. Diana's civil lawsuit against Arlington County results in a $2.3 million settlement, money she immediately donates to establish the Colonel Diana Washington Foundation for Police Accountability. The foundation provides legal support for discrimination victims, funds body camera programs in underserved communities, and sponsors bias training for law enforcement agencies nationwide. Systemic changes follow swiftly. Arlington County implements mandatory implicit bias training for all officers. Vehicle searches now require supervisor approval except in emergency situations. A citizen oversight board gains independent investigative powers and budget authority. Officer Walsh's courage in testifying leads to his appointment as head of Arlington County's new Police Accountability Division. His first act is implementing anonymous reporting systems for officer misconduct. The case creates legal precedent for federal prosecution of police civil rights violations. The Mitchell Standard, as legal scholars call it, makes it easier to charge officers who abuse their authority based on racial prejudice. Congress responds with the Colonel Washington Act, strengthening federal oversight of local police departments and requiring annual bias reporting. Military installations nationwide adopt protocols for supporting service members facing discriminatory treatment. Mitchell's former supervisor, Captain Robert Hayes, faces demotion and transfer after investigators discover he ignored multiple complaints about Mitchell's conduct. 3 other officers receive written reprimands for failing to report suspicious patterns in Mitchell's arrest statistics. Diana's story inspires a documentary film, The Colonel's Stand, which wins an Emmy Award for Outstanding Social Impact Programming. The film screens at military bases worldwide, teaching service members about their rights and the importance of standing up to injustice. But perhaps the most significant change occurs in Arlington itself. The neighborhood where Diana faced humiliation becomes a symbol of transformation. Residents organize monthly community meetings with police, creating dialogue between law enforcement and citizens. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly white neighbor who found her voice during Diana's ordeal, becomes a racial justice advocate. She organizes bias workshops at her church and speaks at community colleges about the importance of being an active bystander. The street corner where Mitchell detained Diana now bears a small memorial plaque, in honor of all who stand for justice. Children walk past it daily on their way to school, learning that ordinary people can create extraordinary change. Justice served, but the fight for equality continues. 6 months after her ordeal on Maple Ridge Drive, Colonel Diana Washington stands in her Pentagon office, gazing through bulletproof windows at the Arlington skyline. The same neighborhood where her life changed forever spreads out below, transformed by sunlight and justice into something that looks almost peaceful. Her desk holds 3 items that weren't there before: a framed photo of the 17 neighbors who stood up for her, a congressional commendation for her courage in pursuing justice, and a letter from a young black cadet at West Point who wrote, "Colonel Washington, you showed me that dignity is never negotiable." Diana's promotion to full colonel arrived 2 weeks ago, but the ceremony felt different. Standing at attention while the flag was raised, she thought about all the service members who faced discrimination despite wearing the uniform. Her rank didn't protect her from racism, but her platform allows her to fight it. The personal costs have been real. Death threats arrive weekly from Mitchell's supporters. Her daughter Madison, now a senior at Washington Lee High School, endures whispered comments about her troublemaker mother. But Madison has grown stronger, starting her school's first civil rights club and planning to study law at Howard University. Diana's marriage has deepened through the crisis. Her husband, Colonel James Washington, himself a decorated officer, became her fiercest advocate and closest advisor. Together, they've created a partnership that balances military service with social justice advocacy. The Colonel Diana Washington Foundation has grown beyond Diana's wildest expectations. Corporate sponsors, military families, and individual donors contribute to programs that provide legal support for discrimination victims nationwide. Last month, they helped a young Marine sergeant win his case against racist treatment by civilian police in Georgia. Diana speaks at military academies monthly now, teaching future officers about moral courage and the importance of standing up for what's right. Her message never changes. Leadership isn't just about commanding soldiers in battle. It's about defending justice wherever you find injustice. The broader impact continues rippling outward. The Mitchell case influenced police reform legislation in 17 states. Federal funding now requires bias training and accountability measures that save lives and careers. Officer Walsh, promoted to captain, runs Arlington County's model accountability program that other departments study and replicate. Arlington itself has become a symbol of community transformation. The neighborhood association where Diana's ordeal occurred now includes mandatory bias training for new residents and regular dialogues between police and citizens. Property values haven't dropped despite fears from some residents. They've actually increased as the community became known for progressive leadership. Mrs. Patterson, now 71, serves on the county's police oversight board. Her transformation from passive bystander to active advocate inspires other community members to find their voices. She tells anyone who will listen, "That day taught me that silence in the face of injustice is complicity." But Diana knows the work isn't finished. Every week brings new stories of military families facing discrimination, police departments resisting reform, and communities struggling with racial healing. Her foundation's waiting list for legal assistance grows longer each month. Standing at her Pentagon window, Diana reflects on a conversation with General Hayes last week. "Colonel, you could have stayed quiet, accepted the apology, and moved on. Why keep fighting?" Diana's answer came without hesitation. "General, what happened to me wasn't unique because I'm a colonel. It was unique because I had the platform to demand justice. Every victim of police misconduct deserves that same justice. Tomorrow, Diana testifies before Congress again, advocating for the updated Colonel Washington Act that would strengthen federal oversight of local police departments. Next month, she will keynote the NAACP's National Convention. Her calendar stays packed with speaking engagements, legal consultations, and foundation work. The irony isn't lost on her. Mitchell thought he was humiliating another black woman who didn't belong in his neighborhood. Instead, he created a national leader whose voice carries from the Pentagon to Capitol Hill. Diana turns from the window and picks up her secure phone to call General Martinez about tomorrow's Joint Chiefs briefing. But first, she looks once more at that photo of her neighbors. 17 ordinary people who did something extraordinary when they witnessed injustice. That day on Arlington Street, Diana says to the empty office, practicing tomorrow's congressional testimony, I learned that justice isn't automatic. It requires witnesses who speak up, communities that demand accountability, and systems that actually deliver consequences. She pauses, thinking about the young people watching her story unfold on social media, the service members who face discrimination daily, the families seeking justice through her foundation. My rank didn't protect me from racism, but my platform allows me to fight it. The question isn't whether discrimination exists. We know it does. The question is what we do when we see it. Diana straightens her uniform and heads toward the briefing room, ready for another battle in the long war for justice. Because Colonel Diana Washington has never retreated from a mission in her life. If this story moved you, don't just watch, act. Support civil rights organizations like the NAACP, ACLU, and local police accountability groups. Vote for leaders who prioritize justice over politics. Most importantly, speak up when you witness discrimination happening around you. Share this story, but more than that, share your commitment to creating a society where everyone, regardless of race, rank, or background, receives equal treatment under the law. Subscribe for more stories of courage, justice, and the ongoing fight for equality. Because these aren't just stories, they're calls to conscience, reminders that each of us has the power to stand up for what's right. Here's the question that will define your character. The next time you see injustice happening in front of you, will you be a bystander who stays silent, or will you be the witness whose courage changes everything? Because somewhere right now, another Diana Washington is being judged not by their service or character, but by the color of their skin. What will you do about it?